Hey everyone, welcome, and this is our brand new cast. We've never done anything like this before, and welcome to our playoff breakfast #1. So we named it playoff breakfast because we were planning to go a little bit earlier for the day, but the plan is after every playoff game, the day after, we wanted to, do a cast for about 30 minutes or so, and just basically cover things that happened in the game, that kind of stuff. Anyway, this is myself, Runetic5, otherwise known as Arun, and with me today is Adam, otherwise known as Sweet44722 on Reddit. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, and if you have any comments or concerns, please do comment below on the YouTube video. Anyway, starting off, we have three major topics that we're going to be talking about. Basically, the difference between Game 1 and Game 2. Second up, the good, the bad, the ugly, and what do we change, what stays the same. And that would be our three main topics. Anyway, starting off, Adam, did you want to start off the conversation about Game 1 versus Game 2?
I think the conversation kind of starts itself. It's a pretty dramatic difference, right? I mean, we look at the first period of game one, and it looks like the entirety of game two. They came out with a lot of energy, they dominated, and then as it got later in the period, they started to fall off the train a little bit, and then in the second and third periods, they just got destroyed. That was the first game, of course. Second game that came out, and the Oilers dominated the full game. Final shots were what, 30. Shots were 41 to 21. No, sorry, shots were 36 to 16. Hits were 41 to 21.
Yeah, it was a 16 save shutout for Cam Talbot.
Talbot. Anytime you're giving up 16 shots in a playoff game, your team's done something right.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's just. I mean, even I don't know if we want to delve into the advanced stats quite yet, but if we want to look at them in comparison. It's dramatic. It's for the first game we were looking at something like 39.51 for event score venue adjusted percent for Corsi, and if we look at today's game, the game two, yesterday's game, we were at 69.07, so almost double. It's just a dramatic difference. It seems like McClellan, whatever he said to him, got through, and it showed on the scoreboard too.
Yeah, and on that point of McClellan, I think one of the big things that happened is simply the message got through, for lack of a better term, I guess, where McClellan was able to make enough adjustments that things seemed to come together and just work out in terms of how the Oilers, at the very least, interpreted it. I didn't really notice all that much different, per se, in their game in terms of strategy. Although it was really obvious that there was less a communication breakdown that was going on between the defensemen and the forwards, where the forwards were running away with trying to move the puck forward and quickly, score that goal on the other side and set up pressure. What did you think, Adam, in terms of the difference in terms of a line by line for, let's say, the first line in the first game and the second game?
Well, I mean, the first night I think was really they were shut down pretty hard in the first game. Outside of the first period, they played very well in the first again, but they were pretty well shut down. And then going into the second game, I think the first line started to dominate a bit more. It seems like McDavid's kind of figured out their defense a little bit. Brandon Dillon is playing shutdown D. McDavid has now figured him out, and it seems like going forward that these Sharks are going to be after the ones that adjust to McDavid now rather than the other way around. It's interesting to look at the comparison too, and I think someone who's gone under the radar thus far in general has been the second line, how well they've played.
Yeah.
The second line gets a lot of flack for not producing secondary scoring chances, and they played really well for about 3 weeks before the playoffs, and then since then everyone's been saying they've been playing poorly. You in particular, I think you said Nuge was a sore spot in the first game for you.
Yeah, he was. I felt as though he was turning over the puck a little too easily. That was my problem with Nugent Hopkins.
I mean, if we look at their relative shot attempts percent, so basically Corsi on the NHL side, it's not great for their line. Lucic is the highest on their lineup, negative 5.9%. and then it's Eberle at -6.2, and Nuge's down at 7.4. Now Nuge's also playing more situations, and that's for all situations. So Nuge's playing penalty kill, so that's going to obviously hinder a lot. But he had a good game. Like for all things considered, McDavid in the past 2 games, McDavid's at the highest in the forwards for time on ice at 21.07 or 21 minutes and 7 seconds average per game. And
With Nugent
Nuge's
Hopkins second, I'm pretty sure.
In forwards, yeah, 20 minutes and 17 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, on the point of that second line, the Lucic obviously is a given simply because he's producing, and he had a really good first period to the first game, and played a direct or indirect role in terms of causing, or direct really, because he got points on both of them, including the goal itself, on both of the goals that the Oilers scored in that game. Although, and to add to that, I think a key person that's sort of, he's not really getting the points for it, but I'm really impressed with the way and the effort that he's put in, and it's remarkably different from the regular season, is Jordan Eberle. I think Eberle has had a fantastic 2 games so far. Even with the loss, I still think he was one of the better forwards in the second, third, and in overtime for the first game, where we obviously got dominated and we ended up losing that game. He has, I don't know what it is, he has a certain jump in him that just is clearly making him stand out. He keeps, I don't know, I'm just thoroughly impressed with the way that he plays. It's really redundant at this point, but there's really no better way to explain it. Adam? Do you have any points to add about Eberle? Yeah, he's being physical. Yeah, that's a big part about it. He follows through on his hits. He's jumping in on the on wherever like he needs to. Like he's going to the corners and he's coming out with the puck more often than not. And that's the difference right now between Nugent Hopkins and Eberle for me, is that Nugent Hopkins may be like, he's a little bit of a step slower, but he's not coming out with the puck, and that's the only concern that I have with him. But I think it's simply going to be a nerves thing, and Nugent Hopkins of the regular season will come through soon enough, or at very least the last 6
Well, I was going to say, so a couple of points there then. I think the biggest difference is obviously between game 1 and game 2 is where Oilers got back to their game. Big, heavy, physical team, which we haven't been able to say for a few years. Throwing a lot of hits, putting pressure on the defensemen. We saw Nugent Hopkins, Lucic, and McDavid in particular putting a lot of hard pressure on defense. I think it was it Cassian also got a turnover a couple times. Lucic got a partial breakaway because they turned the puck over. It's just that kind of thing where it seems like that they got back to the high pressure game that they're used to playing, and it made the difference. But moving forward, obviously the inexperience showed in game 1. They didn't play very well. They were overwhelmed by the crowd. It seemed like they weren't ready for the stage. Is that going to continue into game 3 in a new venue where they might not be used to a away building being that loud? Or do you think that because they've had good success on the road this year that they might be okay?
I think they're going to be okay. Primarily because, in general, one of the arenas that I dislike playing in, I dislike the Oilers playing in is what the hell is the San Jose arena called again?
SAP Center.
SAP. No, what's it stand for again?
No idea.
I don't know.
SAP is insurance company, I believe.
Okay, SAP Center. I don't think whatever. SAP Center. And that arena. Like, if you thought the Oilers were loud, that arena, it's right up there in terms of being loud, electric, and a fairly difficult arena to play in. And the thing is that not only have we played in that arena, we finally won in that arena again this season. So for that sake, I'm fairly confident that we can still do well. But obviously line matching is going to play a huge role in all of that.
Well, it's interesting to me because it was clear in the first game that McClellan doesn't do line matching. He said he didn't do it in the first game, and got kind of our ass kicked. But in the second game, I don't think he did it either. I don't think he would just adjust. Well, I mean, we've seen him adjust a lot of lines, but I don't think we've ever really seen and strategies. But we've never really seen him adjust his coaching method. And
No.
I'm wondering if the Oilers can now play that game where they don't have to worry about line matching, whether it's going to make a difference
Yeah.
in a venue where they don't have to worry about it. Like they don't,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they let Peter DeBoer deal with the whole thing.
Okay, so we went off on a little bit of a tangent. So I'm going to bring it back and let's talk about the good. What do you think went good for the first 2 games?
Good, I think, was the physicality. Regardless of whether or not you look at the first game or second game, the Oilers threw a lot of hits. Obviously, like I said earlier, this past game, the game 2, Oilers out hit the Sharks by almost double, 41-21. And then in the previous game,
It was a thrashing in the previous game.
Yeah, hits were 50-34. So it was the Sharks threw more hits. The Sharks really got physically dominated in the second game. I think that's one of the big differences. The Sharks just got wrecked in a hit department. It's odd because the Sharks aren't a small team. They have size. I mean, Brent Burns, Joe Thornton, Logan Couture is a smaller guy, but Joe Pavelski isn't exactly small either. Their guys play physical. They play hard. Their defense hits a lot, but they were thrown under the bus hard by the Oilers. Like the Oilers just ran over them. And it was almost like a train wreck on defense at some points in the second game. So I think the physicality has been one thing. Cam Talbot, obviously, have been stellar. And I think the coaching staff, in terms of adjustments, was appropriate. It was good enough for me. They went from Grabber to Benning. He played very well last night. They had the other actually defensemen be much more active in this game, the game 2, than game 1. We could see Chris Russell and Darnell Nurse jumping up a lot more. Sekera was getting into the plays, and they were all getting back hard. The forwards were much better, much more diligent on the back check. There was a couple plays that were straight up Nuge, came back through the center of the ice, lifted. I think it was Pavelski's stick, stole the puck, turned back around, iced it during the penalty kill, or it was McDavid that did that. Sorry, and so it's that kind of thing that I think has been prevalent, and the penalty kill too. Penalty kill was stellar, and it had to be. We'll mention that obviously. We'll mention that after. But what stood up for you?
What stood up for me is that our third line has been really good. I think our what stood out to me especially is that our second, third, a little bit of our fourth line has been quite better than we both probably initially anticipated it to be. Obviously, a big demand for this series was that those lines needed to step up because a lot of the concentration would be going into shutting down McDavid. And I've been fairly happy about it. A line doesn't need to contribute fully on an offensive role. Like the key thing here is that it was a physicality aspect of it that they chipped in and they made that impact. Obviously, there are some concerns. Letestu is still not that great at creating chances on 5-on-5. I do wish that Desharnais. I do wish that we call up Lander, actually, and we have him subbing in and out with Desharnais. Because I'm not that happy with this play, but that being said, I am very happy right now with the play of Pouliot, and he's someone that's sort of flying under the radar, but he definitely had a really good game 1. Obviously, that was a loss, but he still had a really good game 1. He wasn't responsible for any goals against. And he was been very good on the penalty kill as well. Although he's been swapped out of the penalty kill now, hasn't he? It's Cassian?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. He's been very good on the penalty kill for game 1, at the very least. I'm hopeful on that front. And that actually gets us to the bad, unless you wanted to comment on anything I said.
No, not really. I think you pretty much brought it up. Or actually, I guess the coaches swapped out Pakarinen too for Slepyshev, I believe.
They did, yeah. And Slepyshev didn't have a fantastic.
The fourth line in general didn't have a great game yesterday, all things considered.
Yeah.
The team played very well. They didn't play poorly, but they didn't play well.
No.
They got hemmed in a couple times.
Yeah, yeah. I did want to see Pakarinen coming back into the lineup actually, and obviously the problem there is that Slepyshev has been fairly good over the past season. Do you like how do you justify bringing him on, bringing him off? But I'd give Pakarinen another look because I've just been just simply impressed with his play. Um, in the first game, I did have some stats, but I have lost that page. If you don't have any stats, can you let me know in terms of what his stats were for the first game, Adam?
And Pakarinen,
Yeah, like his
um,
shots on the close and
his
unblocked.
well, his shot attempt relative, so his Corsi basically percent was negative 26.5%.
Which
Uh,
that's like second line right there, isn't it?
no, he's almost bottom of the list.
Oh,
It's bottom.
serious.
It's Pakarinen, Desharnais, and Slepyshev for the bottom three. Um, yeah, so basically the fourth line. And
Yeah.
Pouliot's right above Pakarinen, but like it goes Pouliot's at negative 22, Pakarinen's at negative 26 and a half,
Mm-hmm.
Desharnais at negative 34, and Slepyshev is at negative 35.
Mm-hmm. What about
So realistically,
unblocks?
if we're looking at this, I mean, truthfully, the fourth line has been rather dominated on the shot clock. Now, in fairness, on the shot clock,
Well,
on the shot counter, in fairness to them,
yeah.
their time on ice has not been
No,
significant.
no, that's
Like if we're looking at time on ice, Slepyshev's the lowest at 5 minutes and 55 seconds played. Desharnais at 6:27, Pakarinen's at 8:26, and then
Mm-hmm.
Pouliot's at 11:01.
Mm-hmm.
So now, and that's combined for both games. So whether or not
Mm-hmm.
that's average combined for both games, sorry, whether or not you want to say, the reason they're not playing much is because they're getting dominated, and that's why their stats are so bad, or they're not playing much and they're playing poorly on those lines, and that's why it's so bad. Like it's kind of like a,
I do think some of it actually comes into line matching. What I'm noticing is the moment that fourth line steps out, at least game one, I wasn't able to catch as much of game two on a TV screen. I had to listen to a lot of it on radio. And the moment that line stepped onto the ice, suddenly San Jose had its first line out. They were always diligent to try to do that, which, good on them, and that's what you need to be doing. But that's also an indication that obviously there's a mismatch there, and they're trying to take advantage of that. That being said, in my opinion, it's the results that matter at the end of the day. And, they're not great at creating opportunities, but that being said, Pouliot still drew a penalty in that first game. He did have a really good penalty kill. And I think Pacarena threw a penalty too, didn't he? Unless
I
I'm totally
think
wrong
you
with
have
that.
buried, yeah, at one point.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I might be wrong on that. If someone wants to chime in on chat or Twitter, let us know, and we will get to you on that.
I think I don't know because it's like to me I don't know if it's sample size or play, and I think it's a bit of both.
I think
And
it's sample
close.
size more than it is play because you have to look at like something like our first 7 games of the regular season, and we had like all the stats indicating that we were actually deserving to be in the bottom, like near the bottom 5 teams and whatnot, which is totally inaccurate. And and then the stats, caught up, and it was indicating that we were a middle of the pack team, and we eventually got better from there. So right now for me, it's just sample size, and it's going to take some time for that line to even out. Uh, that being said, for a fourth line, that's not really that bad of a fourth line. Like what at least a line is going to get negative totals for shot attempts.
Well, I think you actually bring up an interesting point with the line matching.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Okay.
McClellan not line matching,
Okay.
but we
I
didn't.
guess we can go into the bad with line matching then.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the
Yeah.
way, I was actually just going to say I got an update. Apparently, Mathot is going to play today for the first time since his finger exploded.
Ooh.
So it's not Oilers related, but it's interesting. So
Yeah. Good for you to get
um,
your finger on that.
I got right to the point.
Yeah, pointing it at. Fuck. God damn it, dude. I was gonna say that one. Yeah, don't worry. Okay, what's the next one?
The bad. So
Yeah,
the bad. I mean, if we're going to start out, discipline. is the number one
I
issue
would say
right
that's
now.
the ugly. Let's go back to the bad.
Oh, the bad. All right, the bad. So the bad would have to be line matching then. If we're really going to look at it from a team perspective, if you can't line match in the playoffs and you're getting dominated like we were in game one, that kind of points to an issue with the coaching staff not being able to adapt properly, and it's not encouraging. And that's been a criticism of McClellan in the past.
Yeah, it has been.
And that's where a lot of teams falter in the playoffs. And it might just be that this team is different than the Sharks he's played in the past, where it's a bit deeper, and he has different players and different points where he can send out and do whatever. But at some point, you have to look at it and say, dude, you got to fix something here. Come on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. For me, like another bad has been. It's hard to pinpoint one exactly because a lot of the stuff pretty much goes into the territory of ugly. But I'm. Yes. For me, another bad is been a little bit of Nurse's play. It was much better in the second game, but in the first game, it was him and Greiba as a matchup. And potentially, like, Greiba was obviously the ugly of that pairing, but Nurse didn't have a great game either. He let his guy easily get around him and allow him to make that pass across the front of like, through the blue paint, allowing Ward for an easy tap-in, which Greiba should have tied up, by the way. And I hope that we get a little bit more consistency out of him, and that, at the very least, even if we get knocked out of the playoffs at some point, that we gain that consistency from him, and we get better results from Nurse going forward. I do think he's a lot more improved from last season, but obviously there's some kinks to be worked out here. Another bad for me, and this I won't fall into the category of ugly quite just yet, is obviously Clefbaum didn't play most of the third period last game. And it's concerning because he, like, outside of that third period, he has been playing most of the minutes among all defensemen for the Oilers. Because of that third period, obviously Sekera jumped ahead because he wasn't playing. But that it's like it's hard to replace 23 to 26 minutes a night, even with the depth that we have on defense, and it sort of misses a guy like Davidson. That being said, I'm working under the assumption that he's not going to play in the next game, but that's not the story at the moment. The story at the moment is that he's fine and he's good to go, according to Clefbaum. But it's the playoffs, and you can't trust players, so I'm just going to assume that he's not going to be able to play at 100%, which is unfortunate because Clefbaum, I think, has been our best defenseman.
Yeah. I think McClellan actually has been. McClellan came out and said he's all right. Like he said, I checked on him, he's all right. But
he said
again,
he's
they're
all
going
right.
to say that. They're going to say that regardless. Joe Thornton said he was going to be 100% playing in game one and still is missing game 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So Couture said he'd be at 100%. He still can't breathe properly in interviews. It's just one of those things where it's playoffs. The guys are going to push themselves regardless. I have a feeling he'll play, but he won't be at 100%. I don't think I don't think a lot of players are at 100% right now. That's again just playoffs, but it's another level. It'll be interesting to see him moving forward. But how, if his play is that bad, I think we can say okay, it's clear that he's not playing 100%. But it'll be interesting. And I think another thing I want to mention bad before we move to the ugly was some of the passing yesterday. Moving from game 1 to game 2 still seemed like it wasn't crisp. To start the game, there were a lot of passes in the feet. There were a lot of area passes. We had one power play at the beginning of the game where I think they missed 4 straight passes where it was like Nurse passed it into McDavid's feet. McDavid missed Draisaitl the pass. Draisaitl just has to stop doing the drop passes.
He has to, yeah.
So drop pass into someone else's feet, and then a puck ring around the boards that a defenseman wasn't there to cover.
Yeah.
And it's like in that one shift there were 4 missed passes, and that's just killer.
Yeah.
It's come on.
Yeah, and I guess that leads really well into the ugly on the topic of missed passes. And I guess the biggest one there is the turnovers from game 1. That's like a given, right? Turnovers from game one is an obvious ugly. The number of penalties that we're taking is a really big ugly. We took, I think, 6, 7 penalties in the first game, and then 6 penalties in the second game. Obviously, something's working out, because even with those 6 penalties in the second game, we still won, and both of our goals came shorthanded. So I guess one of the good that we didn't go into much depth for is how good our penalty kill has been going. That being said, Thornton is, especially after the performance from the San Jose Sharks, he's probably going to be making himself come into this next game 3. And that's going to change the complexion of their power play a lot. And I'm not too excited to go on another penalty. Poo Party, you're right. Sharks have no penalty without Jumbo Joe, but the thing is that their penalty has still been 25th in the league with Jumbo Joe.
They don't have a great power play.
Yeah, their power play has been really, really bad.
That said,
it can you need is one guy with determination to fix one thing, and a guy like Joe Thornton, and suddenly it doesn't matter. It's just 7 games in total potentially, and that's all you need to determine the whole series.
You don't give a playoff team 12 opportunities in 2 games.
Yeah, even if they only scored on 1 so far, it doesn't mean that they can't score 3 for 3 in the next game.
For me, it's just one of those things where it's like the penalty kill has been so good, but it's an ugly because it shouldn't have to be playing this often.
Yeah,
like the discipline just isn't there, and with our power play, we're 1 for 9. Like that's it's not terrible, but going over 6 in the game is not good enough. Like we're running at 10% right now, 11% technically, but it's just. That has to go up a little bit. Maybe 6-7%.
I haven't found enough of a correlation between a strong power play and success in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That being said, getting opportunities to produce is something you always want, right?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is that the power play has been bad. They're just not producing. So yesterday there was a couple power plays where they just dominated the entire time. I think
absolutely.
I want to say the third or fourth power play they spent the entire time in the offensive zone. So that's obviously a really good sign.
Okay. Poop Party had a really cool comment, and I agree with this. We mentioned one person, but I'll say it for Adam here. He just joined with the Condors out. Who do you think should come up? By the way, do you remember when it is that we can have unlimited number of call-ups? I think it's second round onward, right?
I have no idea, to be honest.
I was pretty
certain it was. I was pretty certain it was 4 after the trade deadline, and that's it.
No, there is an unlimited one, but I think for sure Pool Party, or Puliarvi, as technically his actual name is, will be a likely call-up. Along with that,
was already called up.
Kyra's already been called up, and I would give a shot at calling up Lander, just to see if that DRNA line gets a different complexion, with Lander centering it instead of DRNA. But that's pretty much it. I would leave it at that. Potentially Osterley, and that I leave it at that.
Osterley I think he's still injured right now. I don't know if he's recovered from. He took that bad hit from behind. I'm not sure if he's back yet.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he left on a stretcher, but he was saying he said after the game he was fine. He's really gonna get back quickly, but it was one of those things where it's like, how long could he be out for? It's again what you say versus how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Lander was obviously an AHL star, but I don't know if he's proven to be enough of an AHL player to play in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of a tough spot because it's not really like the end of the season past years where you've played well, you deserve a call-up. It's like, who can we bring in who's going to make an impact that's not going to be a detriment? And, Kara's played well enough that I think you could say he could step in for Desharnais if Desharnais is still playing this badly in Game 3 or Game 4. I think you can they'd probably call up a defenseman. If Osterley's healthy, it's Osterley. If not, it's probably going to be Reinhardt or Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
Is Simpson still called? No, Simpson went down.
Reinhardt, I don't know,
It's
and
been one of those things where it's like, oh well, he did have a good season in Bakersfield, but it's, do you bring him up and give him the
oh,
opportunity to say, here, you played really well this season, give a crack at showing us what you got, or is the kind of thing where it's, we don't know, you're here in case something happens, watch and observe. It's probably what
yeah.
I'm going to imagine it's going to be.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of that. Yeah, I agree with you. That's
Now, do you
likely
think
the reason why, like, even though I want Lander to be up and to see how things might look differently with him up, I don't imagine it actually happening.
don't poke holes in a floating raft?
Exactly. Like right now, actually on that point, and since we were talking about the ugly before quickly switching here and talking about AHL land call-ups. Thank you for the questions, by the way. Um, What are your thoughts on? Actually, no. Not what are your thoughts. I'm just gonna say it. I thought Greiva was really bad in that first game. He had the fewest minutes played of any defenseman, and he had a really he had the least. Basically, he had, in terms of a minutes opportunity, he had the least opportunity to make a positive or a negative impact on the game, and he used that fully to be one, a really big failing on his part by leaving Carlson completely open for the overtime goal, and the other one being where he should have tied up Ward's stick, or at the very least played the body on a guy that's right in front of his goaltender. Uh, on the no, that wasn't on that was on the power play. I don't remember. Adam,
When?
when Ward scored.
No, it was
It
even
was
strength.
five. Yeah, 5-on-5. Yeah, he should have tied up his man there. That was, um, it's unfortunate. But one thing is for 100% sure. Just looking at it in terms of an advanced stat perspective, Benning has been straight up positive for the Oilers. That being said, he's still getting a lot of positive zone starts. But in terms of having a more effective third line or third defensive pairing, excuse me, he's had a very positive impact. So on that point, do you then have any opinions on trying to switch out a Nurse or just leaving that defense core as it is, even if Clefbaum may not be at 100%?
I think you have to leave the way it is, both because they've played this whole season and they're now familiar with their partners and they've earned the right to be there. But I don't think they've been monumentally bad, aside from Greiba, to really switch them out. So Greiba, I'm guessing Greiba started because they want to play the big physical game, and Greiba's played against San Jose in the past. But if you look at Matt Benning when he came in yesterday, he didn't play a light game. Matt Benning stepped in and threw some big hits. He played physical, he played fast, he played hard. And I think I'm looking at the time on ice here, and it's a little interesting. If you look at Matt Benning, he played 25 shifts, but was at 15:44 for ice time,
Mm-hmm.
versus Grabo, who played 21 shifts, but was at 15:59. So that tells me that 4 shifts where Graba's playing an extra 15 seconds, it seems like Greiba, they're both playing short shifts, but Greiba is being stuck out a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's relative, but
It's
it's
relative. Yeah, that's really relative there.
yeah. But actually, the interesting one to me is Russell, who is at 29 and a half shifts a game, but a 20 minutes game played average. So he's taking
Oh.
short shifts.
Yeah, it's short
He's not.
shifts.
He's not.
No, I agree with McClellan on doing that too. I think Russell is most effective with short shifts, and along with that, there was like an extended like 3 minutes or something where him and Clefbaum, I think it was, were at hemmed in their own zone. So that's gonna skew the numbers a little bit there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting.
Hmm.
Now, actually, the one thing I look at here, so if we have Pakarinen and Slepyshev, and Slepyshev didn't play stellar, and Pakarinen played all right.
Played all
If you
right,
bring
yeah.
Puljujarvi, if you bring Puljujarvi up and they have another bad game, do you bring Puljujarvi in because he's shown he can play at NHL level, or do you let Puljujarvi watch and observe?
I just leave Pugliarvi to watch and observe. Like we mentioned earlier, there's no reason to mess around anything, and I think at this point it's too risky with a line that is getting hemmed in their own zone, um, or at the very least getting less opportunities for and more opportunities for the offense. Um, it's just not gonna work when you put in a player that is having defensive problems in the AHL right now. He's still having a little bit of a problem, like making that complete adjustment to the NHL game, in my opinion. Considering one of his better aspects when he was drafted was that he was a more defensively responsible line A. Yeah, I just don't mess with that Juju. I leave Puju out for that reason.
But I think Pool Party brought up a good point, saying that Benning had actually he had a rough couple of weeks leading the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh,
That's why like many people were question marking why Griva was filling in for instead of Benning, but like I was in agreement for that. Where just like Benning didn't have great games. He played himself off of that. He played himself to get scratched.
mhm.
But now the results have been really clear where Benning should be lining in instead of Griva.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at 35 minutes right now. So did you want to wrap up, Adam?
Yeah, I don't think we really have too much more to talk about
Exactly. I think we're
realistically.
talking in circles at this point. But yeah.
I mean, so ugly. I mean, ugly is ugly. Does
Yeah.
discipline is
Hmm.
the number one issue for me right now. I don't know if you have a number one issue, but for me, discipline. You can't give a playoff team 12 opportunities and expect them to
Do
maintain one for
you
12.
do you feel as though that the reffing has been fair? Because that's been a common
Um,
comment
I
that's
mean,
brought
with
up.
Tim
The
Peel, you're
Tim
never
Peel
really
one
gonna
was
get a
really that was really like it felt one sided, to be
yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yes and no. I think you can look at it and say the reffing has been poor or good, and that's more a matter of perspective. You have to play often to the referee. So Tim Peel, you can't do shit, or you're gonna get called.
Hmm.
And he's gonna call a bad game. It's just part of the way he is,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And
He's made a
your
name for
special teams has
himself
to
on
step
that.
up. And I mean, yesterday was I think it was more balanced.
4 penalties for the Sharks.
Yeah, they didn't call any penalties on big hits, which has been known to happen the past few years. Even if it's a big clean hit, because it's such a big hit, they'll call charging or roughing or elbowing or something like that. I think
Hmm.
they were pretty good about the penalties we did take were stupid penalties. You looked at Maroon's two penalties. One that came in cross-checked the player in the back in the scrum for that
Yeah,
wasn't really involved. That wasn't really a smart penalty.
that wasn't. Yeah,
His elbowing penalties, his elbow was a bit high. Nurse took a penalty because he just took out a player for no apparent reason. Like it was, a few of them were,
I'm gonna send you a
were
link by the
legitimate
way,
penalties.
just really quickly.
It's one of those things where it's, I can't read that. The text is too small.
Anyway, it's a tweet, and it just basically shows the the uh, the 5-on-5 pairings in terms of Corsi 4 between the 4 different lines, as well as how everything went. And on the whole, obviously, McDavid line was fantastic against every single pairing. Outside of Vlasic, they didn't have a great time with the Vlasic pairing. But the big negative there is that DRNA is not having a great time with that line. The Slepyshev, DRNA, Benoit Pouliot is not having a great time again. Did not have the great time in game 2 against the third pairing, which is funny because they had a great time against the first pairing of the Sharks.
I think it just depends on the matchup, really.
Yeah, it does.
Anyway, I think that's just about it.
Yeah. What's your expectations for Game 3? Who do you think is gonna win? And how long do you think the series is gonna go now?
I mean, we're guaranteed at least five.
At least 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to say the Oilers are going to come out hard, but I think the Sharks at home. I think it's almost going to be a
It's a
reverse
different
to game
monster.
one. I think the
Yeah.
Sharks are going to come up hard
Yeah.
in game one, take the lead first period. I think the Oilers are going to win on a late third period goal, say
Hmm.
3-1.
Hmm. I don't think I'm gonna have to shave my playoff beard quite just yet. I think we're gonna win the whole series in 6 at the end of the day. At least 6 games, in my opinion, based upon how the series has been so one-sided in each game as opposed to the whole series. And I think the Oilers are gonna be a little flat in game 1 just because of again that playoff experience aspect. But I think they'll win the game 4 or game 3. Game 4 will be a loss win for the Oilers.
So then it would have to go to 7, would it not?
Six games.
All right.
At least.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because they can
that's
win
right,
5
yeah.
and 6 and then win the whole series. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say probably. So then you're expecting them to get a home win and then go back to San Jose and win again.
Yes. At that point, I think they have enough of an experience factor, and they're playing a squad that is gonna get pretty banged up at that point. To be honest, if they weren't already banged up.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. I could see the Oilers winning in 6.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing will be Clefbaum.
Yeah.
If he's not good to go,
that's going to be the make or
huge.
break right now. It's the health of Clefbaum, especially when he's been our best defenseman, as far as we both agree on.
Pretty much all season, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so concluding everything today, thank you very much for joining us on this podcast here. For those of you wondering why we didn't have a thread, there is a little bit of an issue going on that we're working out. Keep a heads up for that. We will be updating everyone. And regardless, this has been myself, Reneeeeeeeeal, otherwise known as Arun, and with me today was Adam, otherwise known as Shoot44722. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and we will see you after the next game. Peace.